I think of the life of the miner who must work all his day underground, where his lamplight is all that will shine there, and it's dark and it's damp all around. It is 2 or 3 miles to the coal face, and the tunnel is jagged and low, but he cannot find work on the surface, so it's down in the mines he must go.
Now, we are joined by Andrew, or Andy Gilraine, as everybody would know you here in the Rigna. Maybe Andy, we could say, perhaps one of the youngest miners from the generations.
It would be the last of the generation. The drawers would be the younger cohort. Now, there was a few younger than me now, even.
Yeah. When the word came through that the mines were closing in 1998, you were still a very young age.
Yeah.
How worrying of a time was that, Andy? And obviously worried for the financial impact for yourself, starting off as somebody living in the area. But for Rigna in general, a lot of people would have predicted that this was probably the end, not alone of Rigna, but surrounding areas with the closure.
Because at my age, it wasn't too bad. I could get work. But a lot of the older men, they never got work again.
Yeah.
You know, they just went into farming, and some of them went into the fast courses and things like that. But a lot of them, my father was only like 61 at that stage. Yeah. And he'd never worked again after that. You know, he could have done it, he had 47 years done at the time anyway. But he could have done another 5 or 6 easily. So he was a really good miner, my father, like, you know, praising. There were a lot of good miners as there was. Yeah. But there was no work for them. Like, I was lucky enough. There was you know, and lots of other lads. Yeah. Some of them went to Roski, went into the meat plants, meat factories and things like that.
The fact that the likes of your father, who was only, as you mentioned, 61 at the time, when you think of it now,
you know, I'm
very young.
I'm only 5 years off it, like, that he'd never worked, he never had a job after that again, like, you know.
Yeah. Was that the fact that they were so used to the way of life as a miner?
Well, he wouldn't have went to work anywhere else, I don't think, anyway, after spending 47 years underground. Yeah. And he was lucky to spend. My father was very lucky. He was involved in a few accidents at the time, like, and he had one particular bad one, and I was only a toddler at the time. But talking about near misses, he had one in the pits and one outside the pits. So he had, and he used to tell me about. I used to hear the stories. I was only 4 at the time. On the 26th of July, 1991, there was a bad accident. He was on the lorry, so he was coming down. There was actually holidays was on. The holidays was on, and he used to always work the holidays. He was a workaholic, so he was. Right. And there'd be always a few out clearing roads, you know, falls and roads and stuff like that. Yeah. So one evening they were heading back on the 26th of July, 1971. 71. He was on the back of the lorry. It was a full lorry load of slates. And there was 2 men in there. There was Martin Galudi was the driver. Martin Giovanni was our neighbour, so he was. Yeah. And Johnny Winey, he was the foreman. That'd be old Johnny up there, so he was. And Tommy Tivenin, they were in the front of the lorry. But the lorry came off coming in from Cross Hill anyway, and it overturned. And my father was above on the top, so he was. And lucky enough, if he had fell forward with the load, he would have been killed, I'd say. But he fell off it. He fell at the back. When the lorry went that way, he kind of tumbled at the back.
And this was coming down from Rock Hill, was it?
Rock Hill, yeah. Rock Hill, yeah. He used to tell me the story, like, I was only about 3 or 4 at the time. Yeah. You know, so he was quite bad, like, you know, he was in Galway for a while then. He hadn't, that time, I think that was in 70, he was in Berlin Park, so he was for a good while, and I was only very young, but I always remember the collar on him. Yeah. He used to tell me years ago afterwards, like, you know, I think he spent 2 years off work, like, you know, he didn't get back to work for 2 years after that, so he didn't.
And I remember, I mean, he never bore any of the after effects. Always a fit man.
Yeah. Oh, he was, but I think he was 2 years off before he got back into work again with injuries, like, you know. But he was lucky; he could have been killed if he would have been covered with the load off the lorry, like, you know.
There would have been health issues, I suppose, as well, and there's been well documented dust and so on and so forth. So there was challenges of being a miner.
Mm. Oh, there was always little bits of accidents. Thanks be to God, I never seen anything bad. Yeah. My father was involved in another one, didn't afterwards, with Patrick Daly. The time he got paralysed, he was actually covered in the same fall, but he was lying down, and poor Patrick was sitting up. So it was kind of they were kind of just I don't know what was going on. They were having a chat anyway. Patty was just sitting up, I think. And when it all caved in, it kind of bent him forward where my father was lying down. And he was able to get out, but it had broke his Patrick's spine or whatever that. It left him in a wheelchair anyway. So he was lucky there too. I think that was two dodgy ones.
When you heard of
that
those,
was in the late 70s, I think that one too, or early 80s when that happened.
when you heard of those accidents, Andrew, and you still went in say 84, only a few years after that. The significance of the Sacred Heart picture and saying the prayer where you're going in every morning would always be that constant fear.
No, I never was feared. Everyone, you said a prayer when you were going in and going out. So I would say the Hail Mary. I'd pray to the Blessed Virgin. In and out, you'd always say a prayer, and you take off your helmet and you say a prayer. But you were never afraid. I was never afraid in the pits. No. I was just, you were brought up with, I suppose, listening to my father and the brothers in it. You know, Jerry and Brendan, they were the last two now. They'd be the nearest to me. I don't remember the two older brothers now being in it, but Jerry and Brendan definitely.
Definitely. All right. Talk to me about, 35 years, approaching 35 years on now since the mines closed. What would be the standout memories for you this period of time afterwards? Obviously, working with your dad, you'd have cherished memories from that.
I always have his union badge. He was a very proud union man, so he was. So I always have that in one of my jackets. His 25 years service. You never get them now. I've nearly 40 years service myself, and you never hear anything from the unions now.
The role of the union, and again, you probably would have heard the stories and the strikes and the significance of that.
There was strikes. There was strikes every month, so there was.
Was there any strikes in your time?
Oh, loads of them.
Loads of them.
To be out for a day or two and back in again. Someone now would get disgruntled. Someone's pay would be short, and they wouldn't get.
And other people were out on strike.
Oh, and you couldn't go by it.
Yeah.
That was going on every month nearly. You'd be out for a day or two, and next thing to give in then.
Right.
And you'd be back in and work again. There was loads of strikes as always.
Two things about that. You mentioned there.
I don't remember the bigger ones. There was bigger ones in 70. There was one in 67. There's photographs of that one here. The march to Carrick and Shannon for. I think they were looking for. They were looking for a 5-day week, I think, in that one, and better pay probably. Better pay.
Would there have been that fear that, when that memory was there of the big strike and the long period of time, was there ever that fear that, if you went to the strike, God, this could escalate, and if it goes on more than a week or into 2 weeks, into 3 weeks...
but it never did.
It never did. Luckily enough.
A day or two, I'll actually be back in working again.
Yeah. And the camaraderie was there with the workers that nobody would cross the line.
No. I never seen it crossed anyway. I think there might have been in previous strikes. There might have been, but no, I never. No, everyone was out. One was out, all was out until it was sorted, and you were back in again. It might last a day or two, and everyone back to work again. The word would go around again. Everything was sorted out, and so someone who just might be short and money, or maybe wasn't getting whatever.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, what would it be like then with, say, the relationship with the employer, the firemen, the people in authority? What would it be like when you go back in then after that?
Yeah, well, I was lucky now. The firemen now that there with now, there was a good bit of friction with them now, with Michael Caine and Declan O'Brien. They didn't get on a lot. They done a lot with the book,
Yeah.
They were going by the book a lot. Like they had done their engineering, I suppose, in college, but
attention to detail would be
attention to detail, where they'd be saying go one way, and then they'd be at them in saying, no, that's the wrong way to go. Driving roads different ways,
Yeah.
But they were two anyway. But I was lucky enough, another man, John Jacullion. Yeah. He was a great fire. He was really good.
From
Drumshambo. John Joe still with us, so he is. He's a great elite supporter and great footballer.
That's right.
And the young Adrian, his son worked on he was one of the younger ones. He'd be younger than me though.
Yeah.
And he was there for a while in the pits too, so he was. But he was really good, so he was. He understood. He was a miner himself, so he was. That graduated on to be a fireman, so he did. Yeah. And so he knew he didn't have to be telling the likes of my father or the older Pat Lynch, Michael Gaffney from Keady, and Michael McKiernan. Yeah. They knew what they had to do, But the other ones had their different ways. They'd be telling them what to do. Where John Joe would live it up. He'd guide them. Yeah. And he live it up to themselves and they knew what to do.
There'd be different style of management. Someone who's managing a football team or whatever. Somebody who had the experience, somebody who studied it in college. And would have been maybe more respect in some ways too, say, for the miners that would have been
they aren't done it from
They
the
aren't
beginning.
done it themselves and had that
They would have,
experience.
yeah, and they had more understanding.
Right.
They had a lot more understanding, like, you know, what was ahead of you. Or the younger ones that didn't have the experience, you know, they hadn't the mining thing in their previous, like, you know.
Yeah.
They just came into it in new. They didn't understand, like, you know. They were probably well qualified and everything like that, like, but it was just their way was a different way to the other one's way, like, you know. But the work got done. The work still got done.
So they got done, and targets had to be met.
Is there electricity? Is the light gone out? Is
When-
there a power shortage?
When it does, and maybe it's a fitting cue to finish up.
Aye.
But if you could go back in time to 1984, final question, would you do it all over again, Andy?
It's hard to know because I wouldn't want my own lad to do it. I don't know. It was a different era in different times. I didn't have maybe the options that I have now, like, you know, because I wasn't going to be going to college, you know, things like that, and I was happy to get into the workforce. But I don't know. I wouldn't like my own lad now going into that type of work now.
Yeah, you'd worry as a parent.
You'd worry, but the parents, the people then, they didn't worry. You know, they didn't worry about their sons. You know, I don't think they did. And my father didn't. I don't think anyway.
Yeah.
Because he was well put into us. Like, you know, what was ahead of us. Like, you know, he never worried. I don't think he worried for us.
Yeah. Times have changed, but a lot of good memories to look back on.
Great memories. Yeah, some good memories. Sure, yeah.
Well, look, it's fantastic to catch up with them. It's great to hear them here.
There's a story, if you want to hear a story about a couple of lads.
Yeah.
There was these couple of lads, like, that well, they were there when I went. They were actually Dublin lads, so they were. From all places, Finglas.
That came to work in the mines.
Came to work in the mines. The father had remarried. He'd and came down to Dublin, married a local girl, and this was his previous family. So they ended up working the pits, Matthew and Eddie, and they were really good lads. But one book was really quiet, and the other one was kind of a half mad, so he was.
Right.
You know, so there was a kind of a yin and yang with the boys. So they used to be really good. But there was a friend of mine in here, and he was working in the pits too at the time, and he used to always have his bottle of orange with him every, you know. But Matthew was one of them. He'd always drink it. Most days, if Kieran had left down the orange, Matthew would have drank anyway. But he got his own back in him anyway. Right. He laced it with
a different liquid.
A different liquid anyway, you know. Matthew drank it. He went down one day.
A foreign body.
A foreign body, yeah, but he learned them anyway. He'd never left it. There used to be stowrows in the old workings, like, so.
Yeah.
So he put it for kind of a dose he put into the orange anyway, but he learned them anyway. The poor Matthew never touched his oranges after that again anyway. He never left the road the whole day. So that's it. But they were great lads. Yeah. You know, they really, you could say anything to them. Sean, when you usually get them awful abuse. Yeah. Susie so used to. You'd be bleeding from fingers, and you'd be calling them drug pushers. And, but they always took it in great part. They never really, they always
took it in good spirits.
Took it in good spirits, like them lads. Like, you know, that's just some of the great characters. Like, but you never think the two fingers lads that land below in the mine.
I was just going to put that point to you. You always think of maybe everyone say
locals,
or locally, but they came from.
They took jobs and they came down from all places in the world. The mining wasn't in their blood anyway, put it that way.
Yeah.
You know, and they worked there for a good few years too, so they were, Matt and Eddie.
It probably shows, Andy, there's so much history associated with the mines if you want to try and choreograph it all.
Lots of ones came from different parts, you know, different areas, so they did. It wasn't all Arena, them Kieran, them Shambo, Giva. They came from all over.
All over. Fantastic stuff. Look, some great memories. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, sound, John. I was glad to hope you've got some good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I think of the life of the miner who must work all his day underground, where his lamplight is all that will shine there, and it's dark and it's damp all around. It is 2 or 3 miles to the coal face, and the tunnel is jagged and low, but he cannot find work on the surface, so it's down in the mines he must go.